Alright, in this video we're gonna address how you go about creating hands. And again, this is in conjunction with the other videos as far as the head and the body. So common practice usually to create things separately and then just kind of bring them together and attach them and then weld them properly. So this instance, this is a separate file from my body, my head, and I'm just I want to be concerned about the right shape and definition for my hand, and then I'm going to bring this all together into a body file and combine everything together and attach it. So the way that I'm going to go about this is that I'm going to model one finger, all right. And then based on that finger, I'm just going to duplicate them and shape them into what the other fingers are doing, including the thumb. And then based on that geometry, I'm going to combine them and start creating geometry that's going to allow me to build the hand and the palm. So to create a finger, again, pretty simple. This one you can actually start from a primitive. It's just a lot easier, so I'm just going to use a cube. I'm going to draw it here in a perspective. Alright, and again, you could also try and have a little bit more reference than here. Just using this to kind of have the right shape of the finger. So you can set up image planes just the way you would for a body or a head, but again, I'm just gonna use this one as reference for the shape. So we want to add a couple of subdivisions here. So let's go into a transparent mode. We need to add again loops around where the joints areas are going to be. Maybe a loop here that's going to allow us to create the nail, and just a couple loops that are going to help us with kind of defining the round shape of the finger. So by using the insert edge loop tool, again, I usually want to stick to at least 3 loops for them to deform correctly. Alright, I want to add another one here for the nail. Okay, and then I want to add another loop here in the middle and going through the middle this way as well, to create a little bit of, to be able to create a little bit of curvature. But before I do that, I would probably move this edge first, because again, fingers usually have kind of like a round shape going up like this. So if I were to move this edge after I create the division, this edge would kind of stay in place and create somewhat of a weird shape going on here. So I just get in the habit of kind of moving this first and then adding that division. So another insert edge loop tool. So one right here in the middle, one right here, and again, I want to use those loops that I just created to kind of create a little bit more curvature. And again, just to see what it's doing, just make sure go into kind of like a smooth mode. Alright. Another thing that you can do at this point is get rid of these back faces. Alright, because this is the gap that's going to be connecting to the palm and the top of the hand. So again, I probably want to take these edges right here and just kind of scale them a little bit, create a little bit of a curvature for my finger here. Okay. Same with this. Alright, so something along the lines of that. Also, at this point, also you could also take advantage of the geometry and start shaping the fingers a little bit. Alright, so again, that's the fault of that joint. Same with this one. Alright, and same thing up here. this is where the joint would be, so it's probably a little kind of bony like this. But again, be mindful that these edges are kind of pretty close to each other, so kind of creating a little bit of sharpness here. This might be a little bit too exaggerated, so again, either make sure to bring them down, or you could also select these edges and just use the slide edge loop tool to kind of make sure you don't get these sharp edges. And you know, they should still fold correctly because you have the right topology for it. So something along the lines of that. Then we're gonna go ahead and create the nail by just selecting these faces. Alright, I'm gonna go back to this, and I'm gonna be using, let's see, I'm gonna just extrude, and I'm gonna scale this in like this. Alright, I'm gonna move this down a bit, and then I'm just gonna extrude this out like that. Maybe make this a little bit more straight or round like this, and push this out a bit. Alright, and again, something like the nail is something that's not, especially if you are texturing your character using real world textures, it's something that you either want to address by creating the detail with geometry, or you could just again texture and make sure that you have the right bump mapping or normal mapping for it to look correctly. And again, I'm just going to do a couple more adjustments before I start copying the stuff. Put it out like this. Maybe I'll use a little bit of self-selection like this, so it's affecting the whole model and not just the edge of it. Alright, so that looks decent enough. Alright, and again, at this point I want to go into my top viewport, and I'm going to start making copies of this finger, and again, just kind of shaping them into what is what these are doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on to that file where I've already copied this. I believe it's Hansel 1. Alright, so again, basically it was all copies of the same finger. You just kind of lay them out, make sure you scale them and move them, and kind of place them where they need to go. You know, the thumb is going to go through a little bit of more of an adjustment. One thing you got to keep in mind is, again, by looking at the reference, or even your own hand as a reference, is how the thumb is facing. And again, it's kind of in a sideways angle, looking in this direction rather than facing up the way that the other fingers do. So again, that's very important to try and keep the right shape of our hands. Next step, let's just move on to the next file. Alright, so once you have your thumb, and again I gotta get rid of a little bit of geometry here. It's just a matter of start kind of bridging some of this geometry. So again, I want to have this little bit of a gap because we have the little bit of a gap in our fingers. Sometimes what people do is, rather than having this little bit of a gap, they actually just go in there and have like a V shape between their fingers. That could be, again, when it comes to animation and making sure that it's performing correctly, having a V shape between fingers rather than having a little bit of a gap might be a bit of a mistake. I've seen examples where it just doesn't form right, so I just got into the habit of making sure that's the case. And we're also connecting this finger to the thumb. Alright, and again, using the geometry that's created by combining all these fingers, I started kind of forming what the palm is going to be. And it was just a matter, again, of selecting these edges and using the extrude and just kind of pulling it out. And again, at first I'm not too concerned about how big my faces are or what geometry I'm creating. This is going to change as soon as start kind of extruding some of this stuff out. So again, just to go into the next one. Alright, and in this one, again, you can see that the, again, I'm going to have a couple of triangles here. Again, it's okay as long as they're not doing anything weird to my geometry, okay? And again, trying to keep them to a minimum here. Sometimes there's just no way to kind of keep your geometry to a minimum unless you have a couple of triangles. Alright, but again, notice that what ended up happening here is that I extruded the faces from along these lines, and these vertices right here were collapsed together. I used merge to center, and that's how I ended up getting this. Alright, and again, I need to keep in mind that the arm that I created for my body it doesn't have as many polygons as I have here, so I need to figure out ways to reducing my geometry. Again, one of those ways is by having a couple of triangles, and again, that's not the most ideal way, but you know, you're gonna need to have some here and there. And again, another way that you can go about this is actually by creating four-sided polygons by using the edges of three faces. And again, allow me to demonstrate how this works. And again, I'll probably try and do this into in a orthographic. All right. So we have three faces like this. All right. Then I'm going to, and again, I want to make sure that I don't have my self-selection on for this. All right. I'm going to form three faces by moving these vertices around. Alright. So again, notice that by moving these vertices around, now I've created a three-face gap that I can actually turn into a four-sided polygon. So I'm going to go in here, I can extrude this, and then I can go into the merge vertex tool and just weld these together. Alright, so again, notice that I went from having three polygons to one polygon in one trick. And I can actually do the same with the rest of my geometry here. So again, just kind of arranging this in this manner. So I got three sides right here. Alright, and again, it's just a matter of taking this, extruding, or you know, you can also bridge that if you want to. Alright, so again, that's one of the tricks that you're gonna have to use to create lower topology for your model if you need to reduce it without having to add so many triangles. And again, triangles are gonna happen. Just gotta make sure that they're not deforming your geometry in a weird way, and you know, trying to keep them to a minimum. So let me just move on to the next file here. Alright, and again, in this one you're gonna see that I started doing a couple things. I haven't gotten to the point where I actually simplify my geometry here. Based on the geometry that I had here on the side, I actually created what's going to be part of the wrist. Alright, and based on that, I started creating the geometry that creates some of the shapes that happen in the palm, which is this kind of like pouchy area that's right next to the thumb. Okay, so again, using the geometry that I created by bridging my my index to my thumb, and by creating some geometry, again, based on the geometry that I created on these faces that I extruded off my pinky, I just built this kind of wrist thingy. And again, this can be anything. I kind of just extruded it out and then drew it around. Again, the topology is probably gonna have to change at some point. But if you're not, if you don't want to go into the trouble of drawing this yourself, you can also use a primitive to create the shape and start kind of connecting the edges. I just went ahead and drew it myself, and then I connected. Again, I kind of bridged and then added resolution to create this shape. Going into the next one. Alright, and not much of a difference here. Not sure why I saved that one, but let's just go to 6. Alright, so this one is an almost complete hand here. I don't know if I added all the details that I need to, but again, you see here that I used the technique to reduce my polygon count by creating these shapes and then extruding them out. So instead of having 6 faces that were kind of coming out from whatever I had going on here, I only have 3 faces going here. I also started bridging and connecting my topology that I have on my thumb. Alright, and again, kind of making sure that it has a nice flow so it deforms correctly. At the bottom, again, use the geometry that I created here to be able to kind of start creating this pouchy area that's right under the fingers here. And again, I also use that technique to reduce my polygon count by taking some of these and forming these 4-sided faces right here. Okay, and again, always keep it into account that I needed to keep this flow for this to create that kind of pouchy area that we got going on here. And again, we're seeing that I have a 3-sided polygon right here. Again, at this point, I was just kind of making sure to have something that has the right shape and some nice flowing geometry that's going to fold correctly. So, this might be a problem that I might be able to address later on once I attach the arm to the hand. At this point, doesn't seem to be doing that much of anything there, so it's fine. Alright, and that's how you go about creating a hand. Now the next step is to take all the pieces that we created and kind of bring them together and start attaching. So that's going to be next.